Welcome back to Kermode Uncut, where you find me relaxing with your responses to a number of threads that have been running on the blog. One of them was, I asked a few weeks ago, who in your opinion is the most offensive movie character? Not something that just annoyed you, but a character that has actually offended you. Loads and loads of responses. Here's just a few. This from Robert Paulson. Honourable mention to Robin Hood. In Prince of Thieves, we have an American playing an iconic English hero and a somewhat racially stereotyped sidekick. Then we have the Russell Crowe version, in which Robin Hood of Sherwood Forest, Nottingham, at different times, sometimes in the same sentence, sounds as if he might come from just about any corner of the British Isles, except where he's supposed to. The vocal equivalent of blackface. I find this offensive. Why Ridley Scott let him do it, I will never know. This from Joe. Oh, come on, how has nobody mentioned Willie Scott from Temple of Doom? To this day, I'll never understand how they went from a great female co-lead in Raiders of the Lost Ark to that screeching misogynist cartoon in Temple. There are other things that people have complained about with Temple of Doom, but that's the only one complaining about Willie Scott. This from Dorival. Every character in Sex Lives of the Potato Men, alongside Mick Jagger as Ned Kelly in the train wreck of the same name, an insult to Irish people and bandits in general. Now, this from Howie really caught my eye, largely because I completely disagree with it, but it's very well argued. So in the interest of debate, Bella Swan from the Twilight movies is one of the most offensive, unlikable characters I've seen on screen in a long time. Here's a person who uses and abuses all those around her, while at the same time exposing them to serious danger. She treats her doting father like something she stepped in. She has a reserved group of friends who she turns to when it suits her. She manipulates and plays two guys against each other, stirs up conflicts between two opposing groups, resulting in multiple deaths, and the whole time blindly mopes about her own existence. My reading of Twilight is that Bella is actually an incredibly poisonous influence and is directly responsible for the demise of multiple characters. Just a couple more on this thread from Cinematic Persona. Everybody loves Amelie. I find her to be mean-spiritedly manipulative and lackadaisical, and the film tries to make her look adorable and precious and lovely and wondrous, and that makes her offensive to me. Finally, this from, I think this is pronounced Adsk. Anyone remember Rosemary, played by Gwyneth Paltrow in the Jack Black film Shallow Hal? The film's entire meaning was supposed to be about inner beauty rather than physical appearances. Instead, 95% of the film is about fat gags and the hilarious consequences of being overweight. I'm skinny, but even I found that offensive to overweight people. This from Jay Fano, who sends a catalogue of offensive characters, including Sacha Baron Cohen's Bruno, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, in particular, Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, Peter Sellers' Fu Manchu, but preemptively, Johnny Depp as Tonto in The Lone Ranger. I know it hasn't been released yet, but Depp with a bird on his head does not a Native American make. Moving on, I asked you to name for me your favourite super anti-heroes. This was off the back of the fact that Iron Man has recently been announced to be the most successful screen superhero of all time, certainly in terms of box office. And I was saying, well, what about the anti-heroes? You know, Kick-Ass 2 is coming out soon. Loads and loads of responses, which pretty much stretch the definition of a super anti-hero. Here are just a few. Fisher King, Hellboy, wins by a mile, can't argue with that. From the Dark Dreamweaver one, Darkman, with an all-too-brief cameo by Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell is always all too brief, if it's only in a cameo. But this is my favourite. This is from Dorival. Puma Man, a low-budget Italian superhero film that stars Donald Pleasance. He said it was the worst film he was ever in, and that's saying something. It's about a man who is an Aztec alien man god who puts on a belt and gets the superpowers of jumping and flying, with added terrible green screen effects. Can see in the dark, can sense danger, can teleport through walls, can stop his heart for 10 minutes and use his hands like claws so he can rip through metal and stuff. Apart from the claws, I'm sure pumas don't have any of those powers. It's awful, but hilarious. Finally, off the back of J.J. Abrams and Damon Lindelof apologising for that shot in Star Trek Into Darkness, I said, if you could get one filmmaker to apologise to you personally for something, what would it be? Loads of responses. It seems loads of you want apologies from filmmakers. This from Melva12, George Lucas, George Lucas, George Lucas, George Lucas, George Lucas, George Lucas. He knows why. This from Squidgy Goat, I don't want Tarantino to waste his time apologising to me. After all, he's wasted enough of it already. I want him to get up and set about editing his films. And this, on a similar theme from Seamus Hanley, I think Quentin Tarantino should apologise to Australia. This from Jessica Speed, I'd like an apology from John Carpenter for every film he made after 1988, but especially for Escape from LA. I think you're not alone in that. I remember John Carpenter came on the radio show when Escape from LA had just come out, and there was the question about the surfing down the street shot, which is one of the worst shots in any movie ever. This from Nemi. Louis Leterrier for the remake of one of my childhood favourites, Clash of the Titans. In fact, I apologise to my boyfriend for convincing him to come with me. McG for Terminator Salvation. Dear God, man, what were you thinking? Gore Verbinski for the remake of The Ring. Want an example of how to suck the fear out of a damn scary film? Watch this. The final reveal lost all of its intensity. Finally, this from The Pickle Rock. Danny Boyle for the final 20 minutes of Sunshine. What a way to blow what should have been a cracking movie. I mentioned this because some months ago I did a blog about Sunshine saying it was the great overlooked Danny Boyle classic. And I was amazed at how many people wrote in and say, I feel the same way. I love Sunshine. And there was an awful lot of debate about the ending. Personally, I think the ending is great. I think it makes the film. I think it is completely of a piece. I know some of you disagree, but in this case, you're wrong.